connect with God. I'm sure you've had the experience of talking on your cell phone and you're right in the middle of something that's really important, and what happens? It drops the signal, and you're going, oh, I'm just not getting through. There's just dead silence on the other end because I've lost connection. Or you've been in a place where there's weak wireless, connectivity with your laptop. You're right in the middle of something, and your connection goes away, and you're trying to get it through. And you just have to keep reconnecting to finish the whole session. Then that's very frustrating. But in this wired and networked economy that we're in now, to be disconnected means that you're going to miss out on a lot of things and what's going on in life. Well, today we're going to look at the most vital spiritual connection that you need in your life if you're going to fulfill the purpose that God has for you in your life and to be all that God wants you to be in it. And it's entitled, as I said earlier, Making Your Connection with God. And Jesus made this incredible promise that we're going to talk about here in John 15, verse 7. And in that verse it says, "If you abide in me, and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you." What an incredible verse. If you think about all the pieces and the phrases within that verse of what it's actually saying, that if you're in line and if you're in tune with God's will and God's purpose for your life, then it says, whatever you ask for, He's going to do it. But remember now, we always take verses in context with other verses in the Bible. And it's to be done in His timing and if it aligns with His will and His being. So let's make this easy. The way I look at this is, the verse is basically saying you can ask for whatever Christ Himself would have asked for of the Father. That's the way I like to look at this. In other words, this is not, well, this verse says I can just go out and ask for a BMW and He's going to give it, right? No, that's not what it's saying here. Basically, ask for what Christ Himself would ask. Because what point in time did He say this? Does anybody know? Ooh. Right before He was crucified. Good job, Ed. You get a star. So it was right before He was crucified. So this actually comes from Christ Himself. James chapter 4, verse 3 confirms the context of what this is saying by saying, you ask and you don't receive. Why? Because you ask amiss, is what it says. That you may spend it on your own pleasures instead of on what it's intended to be. The reason why many of our prayers are not answered is because we're not properly connected with Christ. And then, like it says in here, that to abide, that we stay connected. Getting connected, staying connected is what it's about there. So in this verse, Jesus says that if we abide, or we stay connected to Him, and His words abide in us, meaning His word is fully connected to our thinking and our choices and the decisions that we make, then we will see God's answers and His solutions to our requests. That means we've got to regularly and consistently read and study the Bible, God's Word, to understand what His will is for those things. And meditate on it so we can grasp the meaning and make application, if you will, to our own lives. So that we literally live God's way and we follow God's plan for our lives, not our own plan and our own way for our lives. So, but I guess the question would be, how do you do the first part of that John chapter 15, verse 7, and abide in Him? How do you stay connected? All over this world, people want to stay connected. They want to connect to something, it seems like. and to their God if they're following some form of a God. And some have pretty strange ways of going about doing that, don't they? You know, there's some have these religious rituals they go through. And there's one religion like Catholicism that where they've got, well, this is not the one I was thinking of, but there's also ones that have memorized prayers, and there's others that have animal or fruit sacrifices. But one thing that all religions do seem to have in common is prayer, where they talk to their God or their greater spirit or their being or whatever that might be. It's a universal way that mankind attempts to connect with their version of their God. Well, Jesus dealt with the common myths about prayers here, and he made it very clear that prayer was given to us to connect with him, and him being the only true and wise God. And here's what he said in Matthew 6, verses 7 through 8. It says here, when you pray, don't babble on and on as people of other religions do. They think their prayers are answered only by repeating their words again and again. Don't be like them, because your Father knows exactly what you need, even before you ask him. Now that was said over 2,000 years ago. And is it relevant still to today? Yeah, it sure is. Because unfortunately, there's many magazines and seminars and there's self-help books out there that teach you if you just pray this certain way and maybe chant a certain thing, then you can observe certain, or if you observe certain rituals perhaps in your life, then you'll get whatever you want from God. There's also what I think is an abomination that's out there that I call prosperity theology. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Where they say if you do good, then God's going to make you rich. God doesn't promise that. Where were the rich disciples in the Bible? Where were the rich apostles? This wasn't there. That's twisting. There's only one person that's getting rich in that whole process, and that's the pastor that's preaching it, you see. They'll be held accountable for that. Is that how this works? No, that's not what it is. God is not a genie in the bottle for you to rub and poof out and say, this is one of my wishes that I want to have done. Today we'll see how to really connect with God, because it's the most important aspect in your Christian life and your Christian walk. And if you don't understand that, or if you lose thought process of where it is, then you're missing out on why you were created in the first place, which obviously is to what? It's to glorify God, but in the steps that he would have you to do that. So to connect with God and to fulfill his purpose in your life, you need to do 4 things. So if you have your outline, we can go with that. And the first step here is simply to be still. Something that I just mentioned this morning, didn't I? With myself, because I'm thinking all these things, I'm rushing around. But let's just be still, and let's let God do. And it says here in Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. What do you think here that be still means? What do you think his application was here? Listen. Listen to God. That's right. What else? Be at one. Be at one with God. Mm-hmm. Okay. What else? These are all good.
I also think it means to stop striving.
Ooh, that's exactly what I was going to say. Very good. She said it means to stop striving. Cease striving. Yes, perfect. Oh, that's it. You nailed it on the head. Another star. Stop what you're doing and instead of focusing on you, and instead focus on God. Maybe that's why he did that to me this morning, or why I did that to myself. It's to focus on him, because it's all about God. It's not about us. It's about him, and he has the glory. In this metro Atlanta pace that we're in, with frantic lifestyles, and you wonder, how is it that I can possibly be still? And sometimes I think to myself, got to be kidding. But that's what God says. It's the first step to connecting. It's prayer with him. Cease striving. Very good. Be still. And he gives us this illustration in Psalms 131:2. He says in here, I have stilled and quieted myself, just as a small child is quiet with its mother. Let's picture that for a second, what that sounds like. We've all seen that kind of scenario with a baby or with a toddler. And the toddler's kind of getting fussy. Janine and I have a running joke. Sometimes if I am whining a little bit, she goes, "Oh my goodness, I have a toddler." And then I quickly realize, okay, I should be grown up here. But the toddler's kind of fussy and it doesn't want to settle down. And no matter what you do, it's just like, what do I need to do to get this kid to be quiet? And then the mother walks in the room, throws out her arms, and the toddler, comes to the mother, snuggles up close to her, and almost instantly is so quiet, peaceful, and still. Do you get the picture in your mind as to what this verse means in relation to something like that? Just like a small child settles down instantly, it's quiet. If we could be that way in the arms of God, I think is what it's saying here. When you stop what you're doing, turn to me, and pour out your heart to me, God's saying, and doing that in prayer, then you'll have that kind of peaceful sensation that I'm talking about here in your life. A Christian philosopher has said, the more that we train ourselves to spend time alone with God, the more we will discover that God is with us at all times and in all places. All times and all places. Yeah. We have to schedule, and we really have to intentionally set aside time, a quietness away from our busy and hectic lives that we live, to spend time alone with God. Such times just on their own, they just rarely happen. Got to make a concerted effort on it. Sometimes I'm afraid God has to put us flat on our backs to get our attention as well too, when we won't turn to him on our own. But we have to learn to spend time alone with God on our own. And there's no better example of who did this than Jesus himself. Remember that first verse we were sharing, why that was the eve before he was crucified. And he was pouring out his heart to God, where it was like sweating blood, that he was praying so earnestly and hard. It's the first step toward connecting to him in prayer. And he gives the illustration of this also in Psalm 131, verse 2. Oh, I already said. I'm sorry. In Luke 5:16. Yeah, I was looking at it and talking at the same time. And it says here, but Jesus himself would often slip away to the wilderness and pray. Now, why do you think he did that? Have quietness. Were there many people around him that he needed quietness? A lot of times there were. The throngs were so big and heavy and massive that he just had to get away from it all in order to connect. If Jesus had to do that, how much more so do I have to do that to make that happen in my life so I can concentrate on those things? And he had to go out into the desert where no one would follow him. It seemed to be very typical of what he would do. Now, this is me speaking right now. Minimum daily requirements. How long do we need to spend with God? I don't know that there's really an answer to it. How long do you spend talking to your spouse? There's no minimum daily requirements or anything like that. But I would challenge you that if you don't regularly, it's hard to say, spend at least 15 minutes with God, just talking to him, pouring out your heart to him, where there's no noise or distractions, no cell phones, no TV, things like that, that can distract. Just you and God. We used to go to the Wilds Christians camp. I don't know, have you ever gone to the Wilds in Rosman, North Carolina? Yeah. Yep.
That's where we went on our honeymoon.
Is that right? On your honeymoon?
Wow.
Words can't tell you how great that Christian organization camp is. It would take me the rest of my life to tell you the wonderful stories from that. But one of the things they would always have is, and they said it fast one time, and I couldn't quite understand what they were saying. What does that mean? But it was God and I time. God and I time. That's how you say it in Western Carolina. But it was God and I time. We would do this. It was structured time that we would just set aside time where you would go out somewhere and just spend time alone with God and meditate and talk to him. Just you and God in a quiet place. Find that quiet place for you in your house. Think today, where is the best place for me to do that? And let that become kind of I hate to use the word ritual, but just a regular practice, if you will, so that you can find time to be still with God and connect with God and with him. So on this next one, point number 2 is to be sincere. You have to be honest with God and genuine and authentic in what you're saying. Because God says in this same slide, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. Let me say that again. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all of your heart. So there's the key, isn't it? It's like, what's the clue here? And the clue is to do it not half-heartedly. Well, I'm doing this because I know I need to, but no, that's only half-heartedly. With your whole heart, because you just can't wait to talk to God. Just like the opportunity to talk with your spouse. You just can't wait to do those kind of things. So it should be even more so that way. In Jesus' day, there's a group of religious leaders who were really good. They were pros at insincere ritualistic prayers. And they were very, very pious about it as well, too. Well, they prayed publicly 3 times a day, 9 o'clock and at noon and at 3 p.m. And it was always in public places so they could be seen among people. They were very insincere, and I believe they did that mostly for show. Do you know who they were? Who am I referring to? Pharisees, yes. Probably the rest of them as well. Sadducees, publicans, hypocrites. That's right. That's exactly what they were. Interesting you say that, because if you think of where Jesus lashed out in fury, it was never against, I couldn't think of one time I saw it in the Bible where it was against a person who was not saved, that was not part of the ecclesiastical side of things, if you will. He had compassion upon them. But boy, the religious leaders that felt that it was all about them, vipers, hypocrites. I mean, he lashed out against those because they were an abomination to God. Yes, Kathy.
I lived in Turkey for 3 years in a very small town. Those laws there were similar to what they were like 100 years ago when I lived there. But the minuets would go off 3 to 5 times a day.
The minuets 3 to 5 times a day would go off in Turkey?
They would all take out their rugs, kneel down, and when I would ask the landlady that, we rented the apartment from, why do you do that? She said, it's the law.
It's the law, and that was the reason why to do it. What would happen if you didn't?
If somebody saw you, they'd probably tell on you.
They'd probably tell. Yep, I see. And that's a form of being seen, to make it happen that way instead of your own desire. It's a forced desire, isn't it? Yes, right, right. Well, Jesus had made it very clear that these guys, these Pharisees, were not connecting with God at all. In fact, he made it very clear that prayer is not something you do just to be seen by men so that you would appear to be righteous. Here's a great, two good verses on it. Matthew 6, verses 5 through 6. It says, and when you pray, so this is great instructions. Think of this as an instruction book for prayer. Do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by men. But I tell you the truth. Boy, that's something that everybody's seeking today. What is truth? Well, here's the truth right here. They have received their reward in full. Pause right there on it. You know, sometimes when people thank you for something, maybe, you know, the way you may have sung or teach or whatever it may be, you know, I have always felt to myself, if I just say, oh, thank you so much, that I have my reward. But I'd love to say the words, praise to God, thank you. God is the one that should get the glory for that, not me. You know, then your reward, I believe, is in heaven. Now, I'm not saying this is bragging. I'm just trying to say, think about it from your own mindset. That if somebody thanks you for something that's spiritually done, let that be an opportunity to say, praise to God. Thank you that you said that, but all the glory goes to God for all that's done. Okay. Press on to the next one here. So on here, there's two things that will keep us from connecting with God. And the first one on here is, we've kind of touched on this already, is trying to impress others. When you pray, if you're thinking about how you sound to others and trying to impress them, then that's not what God's talking about here with being connected. Because you can't focus on God and then focus on other people at the same time. Have you ever heard someone pray that was very poetic and very flowery and laced with all these impressive theological statements and terms that, frankly, I kind of wondered, now, maybe it's very sincere, but it was done really for the benefit of me hearing it more than it was God hearing it. And at the end of the prayer, I just wanted to applaud and say, wow, what a performance. That person may have been connecting with me and others, but I sincerely doubt that they were truly connecting with God.
Also, that person may be somebody that you know walking with the Lord, and they pray these prayers, and you know they're like a Pharisee. You know their life, and you think,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Now, of course, I'm not making a railing accusation on these things, but you know what I'm trying to say here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Also, if we regard iniquity in our hearts, He will not hear us. So immediately,
Very good.
before we petition Him,
Mm-hmm.
we make sure that there's nothing, no unconfessed sin, as David did.
Right. Because if you have unconfessed sin in your heart, your prayers are hindered from reaching God. That's a very good point. You ever been in a small prayer group? And I know I have, when you're praying around a circle and you're the last one to pray. And all the others, they covered all the other items on there. You're going, And it's my turn, what am I going to say that sounds really spiritual and that won't make me look stupid?
Busy worrying about what you're going to say.
Right. You're not paying attention. You're worried about, I might have missed what Susan was just praying. She was number 3 and I'm number 7. I'm thinking about number 7. Right? Boy, this is convicting. Is it convicting to you? I think it's just me. But it really is. The moment you're starting to think that, I believe you're not connecting with God. Because you can't be worried about what other people think and say when you're trying to focus on Him. And then the other one here is trying to impress God. That can, we say, well, how does that keep us from connecting with God? You're trying to impress God, not trying to communicate with God, but trying to impress God. And I think I do this when I do it unconsciously, saying that we think that God wants to hear rather than what's really inside my heart at that point in time. Let that one sink in a little bit. Yeah.
We can't impress God because He knows us better than we know ourselves.
You can't impress
He
God.
knows all the down and dirty.
I know. He knows the down and dirty, like you said, in our hearts. And there is no impressing God. Sometimes I think I've prayed when what I thought God wanted me to pray for rather than what I really cared about and what was really on my heart and my mind, if that kind of makes sense to you from that standpoint. But just tell God exactly what is on your mind. Sure, with respect and with reverence, but we don't have to start out into the flowery words per se. One of our problems, I think, is that the longer we've been a Christian, the more we pick up on religious cliches, if you will. You know, you hear people pray a certain way, and I'm not picking on anybody, but sometimes you might think, oh, that's a good one. Oh, that really sounded spiritual. When they said that line, like, lead and guide and direct us, I'll do that. Or bless the gift and the giver. There's nothing really wrong with, or bless this food to the nourishment of our bodies.
In our conversation to your glory. Yeah.
Am I connecting with you on this? Because I think they come out as rote. They just come out as, oh, it's time to thank God for the food. So what do I say? Bless the nourishment of our bodies. Then it's not from here. It's just kind of from a memorized text at that point. Contrary, I think it's cool to hear new Christians pray because they haven't had a chance to pick up on all the cliches that I've heard for my 65 years. It's refreshing. Sometimes I've heard things like, hi, God, it's me again. I've got things that I need to talk to you about. That is a fervent prayer right there. That's hitting at the heart of it, isn't it? I mean, I love that. Yeah.
There's a book from, I don't know, 60s or 70s.
Uh-huh.
Dear God, this is Anna.
Dear God, this is Anna.
And
Uh-huh.
it's this little girl that's praying, just out of her heart. It's just,
Yeah. It's
Joan
lovely.
Rivers said, "Can we talk?"
Joan Rivers, that's right. Can we talk with that New York accent? Yeah, that was kind of her one-liner.
Lord, I know I already asked you that.
Uh-huh.
Like I have to remind him. When he hears the first prayer, he knows.
But it's
us. We have to.
Well, even if He doesn't give us what we want right away, you need to continue to pray for it because
Mm-hmm.
it's in His timing.
Yeah.
And we need, I guess, to remind ourselves that He knows what our prayer is, but we need to continue to be patient, but to continue to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Because He wants to do it, because that's what's on our heart.
That's
There
right.
were several years when we were going through some issues with my job and trying to determine, what is it that I'm supposed to do that I'm not doing, okay? And, seeking God, his direction and His purpose and everything. And I came across, this was for at least 3 years or so, I was focusing on when God is silent.
Mm-hmm.
So you ask of something and whatever, and He says nothing. Okay, then what? Okay, and I go that around and around and around in my brain, to try to sort that out. And there wasn't any complicated answer to that other than be patient and wait.
That's right. This silence is often that way. Because that is kind of an answer, is it not, from God?
Yes, it is.
He could say yes, He could say no, He could say wait.
And we had an episode in which it was, he never gave me a full, scenario. Okay, this is what's going to happen to you. Okay, it was more like, I've got it. Very simple. I've got a job for you.
Yeah.
You would say, well, what is it? What is it?
I know.
I've got a job for you. Please.
Please. How are we doing on time? It's time. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right, then let me just hit the remaining points. I'm so sorry, but I love this conversation. This is important. Point 3 is, I was just right about there, is to be simple. In other words, let's not be complicated. Let's not get into vain repetitions on things. Like the Hail Marys, for instance. That's not what God doesn't listen to that stuff. It's all about spending time with him directly. Matthew 6:7 is a good example of that. It says, when you pray, don't use meaningless repetitions. So I'll skip forward and so that we can get all the points in. And that would be right. So you all know this one, but this is where it talks about in Matthew 6:9-13. It's the model for how our prayers should be done. Not exactly that prayer is not the intent, but it's the model for it. That we give praise, that we come to petition him for what we want, and to acknowledge him in all of our ways. So I will skip through those and get you to your last point, which is the fourth one here, and that is believe that God will answer your prayers. Believe that God will answer. And it's all about God's grace and and our faith in God as well too. And I was going to ask you all what grace and faith is. I think you know that. Grace is the unmerited favor of God, knowing that you can't work for those things. And faith, of course, is the substance of things that's hoped for, evidence of things we can't see, just like the air we breathe. I know it's there. I take the evidence of it because I can feel it. And it's important that we remember that the only reason we can connect with God is because of what Jesus Christ did for us on the cross, that we can never connect with God in any ways of our own ways. Now I'll hit another verse here. That's John 14, verse 6. And Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life, and that no one comes to the Father except through me. That's the only way that you can come. That's the way you can personally connect. Because we can say, as it says in Hebrews 4:16, we can approach the throne of grace with great confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace and help in our time of need. And I think that, did we get all 4 points? I think we did. Yep. There we talked again about John 14. If you ask anything in my name, and I will do it, because the work of the Son brings glory as well to the Father. There it is, right there. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him in all ways. So in summary, those are really our 4 points here. And I'm sorry, wasn't able to get through it all the way through, but I loved the conversation. I think that was very important. If we can't connect on that, I don't think we can connect, on the things that the whole message was about here, which was staying connected with God. Okay.